Now again, AT&T was a legal monopoly when that opened. Now, typical office space, office building, at that point in time, you would have approximately 200 square feet per employee. That's sort of the market level. This had 550 square feet per employee. This was Lounge City. I mean, this was a luxurious facility, and it illustrates the benefit, really, of being a legal monopoly. But it also is the case example of the platinum standard of economic development, because it was supported by the rest of the country. It was an externally supported industry. Briefly to go through it, New Jersey accounts for 3% of the nation's population, 3% of the nation's jobs. AT&T had a legal monopoly, and it proves you can export services as well as manufacturing goods. It provided long-distance telephone service to the rest of the country. So 97, other things being equal, 97% of its revenues came from outside of New Jersey and flowed into Basking Ridge. That is a tremendous wealth generator, bringing huge flows of dollars into the state. AT&T, we thought, was the 800-pound telecommunications gorilla. After deregulation, it turned out to be a sitting duck, and it wasn't nimble enough to survive. And so for a while, that was sitting as a symbol of our technological fall. But fortunately, Verizon saw the virtue of that location, took it over, completely revamped it. It's now their global operations center and is, again, an externally supported industry. So what did AT&T do? Well, all the dollars flowing into New Jersey supported a whole range of research activities, and one of the real great ones was Bell Labs in Holmdel, ultimately became Lucent after it was spun off. When you look, this is taken from Bing, and my apologies for not having all the citations on here. I didn't have enough time, but that's the way it looks from the air. It's a double parkway surrounding the site. It still looks like science fiction today. It opened up in 1961. That's a long, long time ago, over a half century ago. And it's another one of these facilities that no place else in the country had anything like it. This is the actual aerial photograph. The double parkway surrounding it. The building is probably New Jersey's finest building, with a signature architect designed by Saarinen, the Finnish architect. It was a landmark as soon as it was built. It once housed 7,000 scientists. This is where cell phone technology and hundreds of patents were actually devised. And essentially, the rest of the country paid for it. But 97% of the revenues that flowed in from AT&T supported this. Obviously, it's sitting vacant, and this really should be the top of our agenda for finding reuse for that. It's a quarter of a mile long, 5 stories high. It has an atrium running the entire quarter of a mile length. It is absolutely magnificent, probably the finest office structure ever built, because AT&T was a monopoly. Now, just as another aside, when AT&T was a legal monopoly, it owned all the local Bell systems in every state. Again, for some of you too young to remember, local telephone services was once provided by New Jersey Bell, and every state had a Indiana Bell, et cetera, et cetera. But AT&T controlled them all. And how did that benefit New Jersey? Well, Western Electric was the manufacturing arm at AT&T. And Western Electric had 2 manufacturing facilities, one outside of Chicago and one in South Kearney. This is still there. Again, super high quality structure, but it really went out in the 1970s as manufacturing shifted to Asia. But New Jersey benefited for one reason. AT&T told all its Bell subsidiaries they could have any telephone equipment and phones they want as long as it was manufactured by Western Electric. So every single phone in the eastern half of the United States was made in New Jersey because it was a legal monopoly. But that's when we look at economic development in the future, that's what we really have to focus on, not shopping centers, not strip malls. Those are recycling industries. They recycle existing dollars. They're not wealth creating. AT&T was wealth creating. Certainly, Verizon, its global operations center in Basking Ridge, is equivalent. It's supported by revenues gathered from around the world, which flow into New Jersey. Another white elephant, very similar to the AT&T building, which was reused, the BASF building, which is not reused. Oh, the only possible reuse for that, the only positive one of the old BASF facility came out of Louis Berger Group, which is a whole bunch of Bloustein graduates run that, a prison. Perfectly situated for that, because again, the private market has not found a reuse for it. Merrill Lynch built this magnificent facility in Forrestal Center on Scudder's Mill Road. There's an aerial photograph, opened in the mid-1980s. The office complex is on the left, and then on the right is a conference center, and then a bridge over to a hotel. So again, no place else in the country had a facility like this. But by the 1990s, the whole brokerage business changed. Merrill Lynch's business model changed. So they leased this facility out to BlackRock, and then they moved out to Hopewell, which was a very controversial decision at the time, extending a sewer line. But there's the location indicated by the arrow along Route 95 going into Pennsylvania, and that's the complex that they built there. But during the Great Recession, one of the casualties was BlackRock. So here we had that magnificent building, well positioned in the Route 1 corridor, sitting vacant. Equivalent again to the sad AT&T. For the 2 or 3 years it was vacant. Fortunately, Novo Nordisk is a Scandinavian drug company growing rapidly. It specializes in diabetes drugs. And in the United States, it's centered its activities in New Jersey. These are two buildings. This is Route 1. Route 1 going to the right is Route 1 North, the other is Route 1 South. The building on top was their first building, built over 10 years ago. The building on the left, they added 3 or 4 years ago. They quickly filled up both those buildings. This is flipped over. On the other side of Route 1 to the left there, that's near the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. That was a speculative office building which was completed in '07. Just as the recession started, so it was sitting vacant for a couple of years, a real disaster. But Novo Nordisk took it over, so they filled up all 3 of those buildings. So really one of the great successes in New Jersey. But they still needed more space. So two months ago, they finally had an agreement to ultimately move into the old Merrill Lynch BlackRock facility in Plainsboro in the Route 1 corridor. The hotel conference center on the right is run by Wyndham Hotels, which is headquartered in New Jersey. And the 700,000 or 800,000 square feet of office in there is being completely gutted. The building is being completely gutted down to the frame, and it's rebuilt for Novo Nordisk. They're going to consolidate operations there. I've talked to the Forrestal Center people. I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen to their old buildings, but certainly tremendous reuse of this building. This is the way it looks today before renovation. This is the picture, the way it's going to be when Novo Nordisk ultimately occupies it. So another example of redevelopment of a well-positioned site in the state of New Jersey. Now again, we know the Panasonic and the urban locations, but this is still a valuable part of the New Jersey economic landscape. Finally, the Jersey City Hudson Waterfront. You all know what this is. This is the headquarters of Goldman Sachs. It's a little less prominent now that One World Trade Center has pierced the skyline. This used to loom very, very large. It looms a little bit less large there. But the importance of this slide is to indicate the viability certainly of Jersey City and the Hudson River waterfront. And so the important one here is not the Goldman Sachs building, but 70 and 90 Hudson Street. And those two little squat buildings in the front there to the right of Goldman Sachs are 70 and 90 Hudson Street. Let me see, there's a close-up of them. They just sold about 6 months ago for a record price of any New Jersey office building, $375 per square foot. About 300. That is an all-time record. Verizon acquired the AT&T complex for about $50 a square foot at a depressed price. This is $375. And then the building to the right, 10 Exchange Place in Jersey City, that just changed hands again in another blockbuster deal, and it almost matched the price of the two preceding buildings. So those are transactions that are taking place on the ground, which I think do indicate some of the, certainly the viability of the Hudson River waterfront, but also the abundance of sites that exist within the state. My forecast is we're not going to see very little new greenfield office development, decentralized development. The new market realities have made that obsolete. So we're either going to see urban locations is where the market wants to be, or repositioning, redoing office space that has probably become obsolete, and it's very easy to vacate that space, rebuild it, and the like. And I think that's one of the key models going forward. So back to 1 Raymond Boulevard, Transportation Central.